The day after the divorce, Julian lost 6 years of memory in a car crash. While the whole world searched for the missing engineering prodigy, I found him on my doorstep. He didn't seem to remember we'd just divorced. He only clutched the hem of my shirt and muttered, pitiful, "Olivia, I'm hungry." I boiled him a bowl of noodles, and after that he simply refused to leave. When I finally called Chloe, she rushed over, jabbed a finger at my nose, and shrieked that I had no shame. "You're already divorced. Why won't you let him go? Don't think you can squeeze back in just because he's forgotten me." I glanced at Julian, who was shielding me like a growling wolf facing Chloe, then showed them both out. I had already let him go, let myself go too. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. When the last rays of sunset spilled across the yard, I spotted Julian crouched by my gate. I frowned, ready to shoo him away, but he looked up at the sound of my step and called out in delight. "Olivia, it really is you. When I got here and saw the new lock and the overgrown garden, I thought you'd moved. I was afraid I'd lost you forever." That childhood nickname sent a shiver through me. Then my stomach churned with acid. We were divorced, and he still dared use that name to twist the knife. He stood, head lowered, tugging my shirt tail like a contrite kid. "Your number was disconnected and your parents' phones went straight to voicemail, so I came here to try my luck." His sharp brows curved in a helpless smile. "Turns out my luck's still good. I finally waited for you." I tugged my shirt free and asked coldly, "What game are you playing this time, Julian? Weren't you the one who killed the line because I annoyed you? And my parents died a year ago. Even if you're trying to amuse Chloe, using the dead for entertainment, have you no conscience? Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning?" I raised my phone like a weapon. "Leave now, or I'm calling the cops for harassment." He stared, stunned, then stammered, "I have amnesia. I woke up in a hospital bed and didn't know anyone, only you." He tapped the bandage around his head. Desperate to convince me, he yanked it off. Dried blood seeped from the scab. "I haven't eaten all day, Olivia. Would you really let me starve?" Half doubting, half sighing, I went inside and boiled him a bowl of greens and noodles. Plain white noodles, a few emerald leaves, one poached egg in the center, nothing else. A man who'd been fed by Michelin-starred private chefs actually buried his face in that humble bowl and scraped it clean, looking satisfied. Yet barely 2 years into our marriage, Julian had declared my cooking inedible. I have no gift for cuisine. After I'd finally produced presentable crab powder lion's head meatballs, my 15th attempt, he told me to throw them out. He pinched the bridge of his nose, irritable. "We pay a housekeeper with both a nutritionist and chef license. Stop wasting your energy." But at the lab, when Chloe said she'd hand-packed him a bento, he'd swallowed the cold egg over rice, stomachache and all. He'd even followed her to greasy spoon dives and sidewalk carts. Chin in hand, I studied him now, same yet different. Under my gaze, he scratched his head, ears flushing, and blurted, "Olivia, you've grown even more beautiful. I feel like I don't deserve you anymore." That froze me. I'm 32, edging past 30, already etched with fine lines. Add endless fights over Chloe, plus my parents' deaths, and exhaustion had hollowed me. Gray streaks pepper my unkempt hair. I wore a rumpled t-shirt and sweats. Next to young, vibrant Chloe, I might as well have been faded wallpaper. During arguments, Julian had hurled the comparison like a knife. "You don't measure up to a single strand of Chloe's hair." She'd summoned me to a coffee shop. The girl wore a trending floral dress, long acrylic nails, the LV Speedy Nano Julian had bought her, chin lifted like a proud peacock. She ordered me an iced American. "Chingjia, you've gained weight. This has 0 calories." And herself a full sugar mocha with tiramisu. Dimples flashed as she tilted her head. "Julian said I looked thinner yesterday and told me to eat more." Chloe talked non-stop. How they'd cracked tough code side by side at 2 a.m., how they'd impulsively flown to the coast at 2:30 to watch sunrise, how misunderstandings had stung. Had I not been Julian's legal wife, I'd have found the lovers adorable and wished them forever. But I was the wife, the childhood sweetheart, once the center of Julian's universe. I'm not made of stone. I can't watch the other woman grind my dignity into the floor and stay silent. So I flung the untouched iced American in her face, wishing mid-splash it had been hot enough to scald. Of course that had been her plan. Julian, worried I might attack, had hovered nearby. When the coffee hit, he strode over, draped his coat around her shoulders, and glared at me with barely tamped fury. He led her out, tossing over his shoulder, "Quit being unreasonable," leaving me alone under the café's mix of scornful and pitying eyes. The one who'd come to provoke was Chloe. The one labeled irrational was me. Apparently, when you're no longer loved, everything you do is wrong. That night, Julian asked for a divorce. My mind snaps back to the present. The words slip out. But she said I'm not good enough for you. They all think I'm not. Chloe, our junior at Harvard and later Julian's lab protege, had marched straight into his group after graduation. Unpretentious, pretty, hardworking, friendly, she charmed everyone. I was reduced to Julian's wife. The entire lab hid the affair from me for 6 months. When I finally stormed in and called Chloe shameless, they closed ranks, shielding her, glaring at me. Little sis just admires Julian. A guy that brilliant attracts crushes, big deal. Come on, sis, no need for such ugly words. You're gonna make little sis cry. They only shared one meal. Apologize or Julian will be pissed you harassed her. Must meals be eaten on laps, feeding each other? I don't care if they never sealed the deal. Shopping trips, birthday surprises, midnight heart-to-hearts over half a year count as cheating in my book. When he made love to me, staring through my face, was he picturing her? But with so many people shielding Chloe, I wanted Julian to stand up for me to explain. Julian said nothing. After a long silence, he finally croaked. I did fall for Chloe, but I won't divorce you. That's how I'll make it up to you, Olivia. He hadn't heard what I'd muttered, hadn't understood, yet when he saw my fists clench, he covered them with his own. Olivia, we got married and then divorced, right? I don't remember what I did to hurt you, but it must have been my fault. I apologize. It's fine if you can't forgive me. I can't forgive myself either. Promise me, though, if anyone bullies you, bully them right back. Don't torment yourself, okay? He gripped my hand and used it to thump his own chest hard, trying to make me laugh. There, I've punished the jerk. Julian's a real bastard for hurting my Olivia. That had been 18-year-old Julian's favorite trick. Whenever I felt wronged, he'd grab my hand, beat his own chest, and say, blame Julian for not protecting Olivia and making her sad. Then he'd fix everything. The Julian in front of me was now 32. The years had sanded away his boyish softness, leaving a sharp, carved face. 32-year-old Julian was steady, remote, always 10 moves ahead. Yet at this moment he overlapped with the boy he'd been. I pulled my hand free and called Chloe. Julian's at my place. Chloe arrived within minutes. The instant she stepped through the door, she slapped me. Olivia, I didn't know you were this shameless, divorced and still clinging to Julian. When Julian saw it, he yanked me behind him, eyes icy. I've never hit a woman, but if you touch her again, I'll make an exception. Tears pooled in Chloe's almond eyes. Julian, I heard about the crash this morning. I dropped the press conference and ran to the hospital. You were unconscious. The doctor said you might lose memories, but how could you forget me, forget everything between us? You promised you'd love only me forever. I'll love only Olivia forever. Julian's roar shook 2 tears loose from Chloe's lashes. I'd had enough. I stepped around Julian and slapped Chloe back with exactly the same force. That's for the slap. I dumped Julian long ago. He's the one who won't let go. I shut the door on them in one smooth motion. They were still arguing outside while I took a shower and slid into sheets that had soaked up a day of sunlight, locking the noise beyond the walls. I sent out resumes and hunted for jobs, living exactly as I had before. Julian haunted my block. He'd start toward me, hesitate, and stop. I treated him like glass. When Professor Shaw heard what had happened, he offered me a lifeline. Research assistant and teaching assistant in his group, focusing on pure and applied math. Wearing a pressed shirt and a knee-length pencil skirt, I reported to his office at the academy. Professor Shaw beamed. Rowan, you've come home to mathematics after all. You're brilliant, but I'm not exactly short of talent, he added. Dean, seated opposite, snorted. Still pretending, old Shaw? When she graduated top of the department 8 years ago and announced she'd follow Julian abroad for English, you cried into your pillow. Professor Shaw's face went parchment white. We agreed you'd spare me in front of Rowan. Keep this up and I'll boycott every future seminar. Watching him sputter, Dean burst out laughing. I laughed too until my eyes blurred. 8 years ago, Julian and I had graduated together. He'd had a Harvard recommendation in hand. The night we chose, he tore the letter in front of me, eyes red-rimmed. Olivia, I promise to take care of you forever. I can do cutting-edge work here. Harvard's just a name. I patted his back. A 6'3" guy crying in a girl's arms, really? I've already applied to Harvard's English department. You hate English. From now on I'll translate all those endless papers for you. I walked away from the math I loved and majored in English just to stay with him, to honor the childhood pinky swear that we'd never part. I don't regret the choice. I regret only how late I woke up and how many people I hurt. Our scandal had made me a campus punchline, but in Professor Shaw's eyes I wasn't Mrs. Sterling. Just Olivia, the Academy's brightest math graduate, his most gifted student. After my first lecture, Chloe burst into the classroom. The once proud peacock now looked like a plucked chicken. She clutched my hand. "Please come see Julian. He hasn't eaten or drunk in days. He found out what happened between you two, says he broke his promise and started hurting himself to atone. Doctors say taking him to familiar places might bring memories back, but he doesn't remember me or what we had. Only you, Olivia." I lowered my eyes, indifferent. "So, what does that have to do with me?" Without thinking, she shot back. "But you love Julian. How can you watch him torture himself?" I pictured Julian cutting himself and felt nothing. No ache, no satisfaction. I was truly over him. I answered calmly, "We're divorced. Legally and emotionally, we're strangers. I have a seminar now. Feel free to wander campus, Miss Sterling." I turned to leave. Behind me, a thud. Chloe had dropped to her knees. Her favorite weapon, public guilt. In front of students and passers-by, she wept and slapped herself. "Sister Olivia, I was wrong. Curse me, hit me, banish me from Julian. I'll do anything. Just please, for the sake of the years you were married, stop him from destroying himself." Once I'd have shrugged, my reputation was already ash. But now I'm Professor Shaw's student. My behavior reflects on him. When I failed to show, he came looking, and walked straight into the spectacle. He stepped between us. "Rowan, ignore her. Julian brought this on himself, and this girl's shameless guilt trip won't work here." He snorted. "I may be old, but I can still protect my student." A wave of warmth rushed through me. Professor Shaw hadn't even waited for an explanation before planting himself squarely at my side, the way my parents once had. But I'd already dragged my parents down once. I wouldn't pull Professor Shaw under this time. I shook my head at him. "Avery, let me handle it." I'd promised Chloe I would help the doctors treat Julian. When I stepped into the VIP suite, he was sitting up in bed, clutching the ugliest rag doll on earth. Somebody had resewn its eyes, crooked, uneven stitches, and the dress was yellowed with age. Little Julian had made it himself. His house sat across from ours. His parents were always overseas on business. They simply wired money to a nanny who was supposed to look after him. That nanny beat him and often withheld food, skimming the allowance his parents sent. Too proud to confess, Julian walked to school each day wearing a stony mask and bought only the cheapest cafeteria item. One weekend the nanny left for a 2-day mahjong binge while school was closed. Julian went 48 hours without food and finally fainted on his doorstep. I dragged him home. My parents called a doctor to start in 4 of glucose. When he woke, the table was set. Mom invited him to eat. Pale-faced, he bowed like a tiny adult. "Thank you, uncle and aunt, but I can't take food from strangers. I have no money to pay." No matter how my parents coaxed, he kept shaking his head. So I batted my lashes and pushed my homework toward him. "Julian, could you show me how to solve this problem?" Without hesitation, he wrote out every step. I pretended to be hopelessly lost. "I've got tons more I don't get. Be my tutor, stay for dinner every night and teach me, okay?" He studied my earnest face, hesitated, then nodded. From then on, he waited for me each morning, walked me to school, and tutored me each evening, until I overheard classmates trashing him. They called him a throwaway bastard, said his parents had replaced him with a new baby abroad, claimed anyone as cold and weird as him had long been disowned. Furious, I hurled my backpack aside and hurled myself at them. Outnumbered but reckless, I quickly got the upper hand. They retaliated by snatching the rag doll clipped to my bag and ripping it to shreds. Julian had hall monitor duty that day and told me to head home first. When he finished and found me sobbing in the corner, one glance at my scraped face and the mess on the ground told him everything. Gently, he wiped the dirt from my palm. "Dummy, let them talk. I don't lose a chunk of flesh." I gaped. I'd fought for him and he called me dumb? No gratitude at all. I dropped my eyes and saw his little finger extended toward me. "Today's my fault. I let you walk alone and didn't protect you. Pinky swear? We stay together forever. I'll never leave Olivia alone again." He restitched the rag doll. It was so lopsided I laughed until snot bubbles popped. After we married, I stored the doll like treasure, planning to give it to our child one day and tell her our story. But there would be no child, and anything connected to Julian had stayed behind in the house we once shared. I walked away empty-handed. I'd assumed he'd tossed it. Keeping your ex-wife's relics would only ignite Chloe's tantrums. Yet here it was intact in his hands. He'd lost weight, bruises mottled his arms. Chloe said he was volatile, hurting himself, so often they sedated him to keep him calm. When the door clicked open, he didn't even look up. "Chloe, please leave. Doctor's orders, rest, no visitors." I walked over, tugged the doll free, and forced his gaze to mine. The instant he saw me, his eyes lit. "Olivia? Why are you here?" Then a bitter smile. "But what right do I have to see you now? I fell for someone else, hurt you. I don't even know what I was thinking. You're incredible. Marrying you was the luck of 8 lifetimes. Why didn't I cherish you?" Agitated, he began pounding his thighs. "It's all my fault, I failed you." I caught his fists and coaxed him. "If you cooperate with the doctors, I'll forgive you." He stilled, looked up. "Really? Then will you grant me one more wish?" I nodded. From the corner of my eye, I caught the camera mounted overhead. Chloe was watching. It was part of our deal. I'd help restore Julian's memory, after which she'd whisk him out of Riverdale and never darken my door again. To keep me honest, she demanded a monitor on my every move. Julian pressed my hand to his cheek. "Olivia, let's start over." The first place we restarted was Riverdale Bridge, where he'd proposed. No stage dressing, no rehearsed speech. We were out for a stroll when I joked, "If you asked me to marry you right now, I'd probably say yes." He tensed, fished out a velvet box he'd carried for weeks, snapped it open. Inside, a sterling diamond. I'd once told him that if the whim ever struck, his odds of success stood at 99.99%. He'd remembered, kept the ring hidden, waited for my casual mention of wanting marriage, then produced it at sunset and asked solemnly, "Will you let me take care of you for the rest of your life?" Reliving the memory, his eyes reddened. He rubbed the band on his ring finger. In the end, I still got to marry Olivia. I smiled, but frost crept into my gaze. "That ring matches Chloe's. Ours, the one you hurled off Riverdale Bridge, was tossed away long ago." He froze. The band on his finger seemed to scorch. I remember the gusts that night, wind whipping my cheeks raw. I can't recall his exact words. I only know I sobbed myself hoarse, yet still failed to stop him flinging our wedding rings into the dark. A cruise ship glided past, decks ablaze with lights. Among all that brilliance, the rings were mere specks, gone in the blink of an eye. I searched the embankment until dawn, throat on fire from the cold. When I finally stepped inside, evidence of Chloe and Julian's night clobbered me. Lingerie strewn across the sofa, stains smeared on my favorite vase. Julian stood at the open kitchen island making breakfast while Chloe hugged him from behind, beaming. I shook with rage, grabbed the vase and smashed it at their feet. Julian spun around, shielding Chloe, scolding me like a nuisance. "Olivia, what now, more drama?" My head throbbed like it was about to split open. I wanted to swear at Chloe for being shameless, but I couldn't force out a single syllable. The last thing I saw before I hit the floor was Julian scooping Chloe into his arms and racing out the door to get her to a hospital, just in case she was hurt. In the end, the housekeeper was the one who drove me to the ER. 39-degree fever on top of a body, still bleeding from the miscarriage. As luck would have it, the room next door housed Chloe and Julian. Chloe's laughing voice floated through the wall. "Julian, aren't you going to check on Olivia? She's right next door, looked pretty bad, came in on a ventilator." "No need. A woman like her only learns when it hurts." Night crept in. The first autumn wind made me cold. Julian instinctively started to apologize, but I had already tucked the ice out of my eyes and told him gently, "It isn't your fault. You're only 18-year-old Julian. You don't have to shoulder every sin the older you will commit." After all, Julian had truly loved me once, exactly the way he loves Chloe now. To treat his amnesia, I moved back into the Sterling estate. The memory-lost Julian turned clingy, jumpy, suspicious. When I taught as Professor Shaw's TA, Julian sat in the lecture hall, claiming he wanted to learn math. In reality, he was scanning for any hormone-ridden freshman who might hit on me. And he found one. While I asked the class if any steps were still unclear, a boy raised his hand, face scarlet, and stammered, "Alex, would you ever date someone younger?" The whole room hooped. I wasn't embarrassed. I was about to smile and say I wasn't looking when Julian stood up. His features were already sharp, glowering. He looked downright menacing. He nudged his silver wire glasses and narrowed his eyes. Even I, a mere auditor, followed that proof. Yet you need Alex to explain it 3 times? He stalked to the podium, snatched a stick of chalk, and in 60 flat seconds solved the problem I had queued for the next half hour. With a cold snort, he added, "Alex graduated top of the Riverdale Institute and published multiple SCI papers before Professor Shaw snatched her for grad school. Instead of scheming how to chase her, go home and study. Figure out how many years it'll take before you're even worth her time." He trotted back like a terrier that had won a dogfight and, once class ended, tipped his chin down at me. "Olivia, you're so brilliant that if I don't watch closely, my wife will run off with someone else." During therapy, he worried I'd skip meals while buried in research. So he cooked at home and carried bento boxes to the office so we could eat together. He checked the forecast every morning and tucked an umbrella into my bag, memorized my cycle, and kept warm water and ibuprofen within reach. We looked like the golden couple we used to be, envied, gossiped about, the benchmark everyone measured romance against. But I kept bringing up the ways he had maimed me. The doctor said triggers help, so I jabbed whenever I could. It worked. Snippets of Chloe were drifting back, fragments of what they'd done. 6 months later, petals from the early spring ornamental plums carpeted the ground, and Julian didn't come home all day. A push notification told me that, after a 6-month leave, engineer Sterling would resume his post today. I knew the memories had fully returned. I packed my few belongings and went back to my own house. That night Ivy took me to dinner. She'd booked a window table at Cloud Line. From it, slightly to the right, you could see the profile of the pianist in the lobby. Ivy knocked back glass after glass of red and finally blurted, "Jasmine, why didn't you just keep the blackout going? He forgot the bitch ever existed. You two could have rebooted." I sipped my own wine, sweet on the tongue, bitter at the back, fragrant in the finish. Swirling the scarlet liquid, I laughed softly. Know why he crashed and lost 6 years? The morning after we signed the papers, Chloe couldn't wait to move in. She demanded crab roast soup dumplings from that shack on Third Ring. The owner bolts the door at 10 sharp, sold out or not. Julian floored the Porsche, and T-boned an SUV racing a yellow. I didn't finish. Ivy could connect the dots. I pinched her cheek. Don't worry. I'm Olivia. Once I say I'm done, I'm done. Once I say I don't care, I don't. Tears glimmered in Ivy's eyes. She slapped my hand away and huffed. This bill is obscene. You're treating next time, and I'm ordering the priciest steak on the menu. I nodded eagerly. Deal, deal, deal. Best friends are like that. She hated my spinelessness. After every snub, every humiliation, I still loved him and tried to legally shackle him to me. Yet she ached for me, knowing how badly I'd hurt without him, and still begged him to take me back. Now that she saw I'd truly walked away, she glowed with relief. As we stepped outside, a Porsche screeched to the curb. Julian climbed out, hair disheveled, chest heaving. He clamped around my wrist. Olivia, where have you been? I've looked everywhere, come home with me. The command was imperial, as though I were still the girl who would drop the world for him. I yanked free and looked at him with cold contempt. Come home. In what role? As your doormat or your lunatic ex? Julian, let me say this one last time. We are divorced. Stop meddling in my life. And where's Chloe? She swore that once your memory returned she'd drag you out of Riverdale and out of my sight forever. Chloe had trailed him. In a white knit dress, she resembled a wind-battered lily. Eyes raw and swollen, she clung to his arm. Julian, I was wrong. I'll never be reckless again. It's my fault you crashed and forgot. Hit me if you want, just don't abandon me. Julian's face twisted between pity and revulsion. At last he peeled her fingers away and rasped. Chloe, I was the one who crossed the line. You were bright and warm, and I couldn't resist. But when my mind wiped clean, I realized I've always loved Olivia. I wronged you, and I'll make it right some other way. Ivy, arms folded beside me, snorted. Prince Sterling reciting another love decree? Think you're royalty, and every woman's dying to climb into your bed? No mirror at home. Piss not reflective enough? Just discovered I love Olivia. I just discovered you're shameless. Our Olivia already told you. You're roadside trash she can't be bothered to glance at. Stop drooling on her shoes, it's disgusting. She shot me a look. When she saw no heartbreak on my face, she happily hooked her arm through mine. Let's blow this joint, Jasmine. Sleepover at my place. IKEA pajamas, margaritas, celebratory trashing of loser exes. Ivy once got voice banned for 10 years in a multiplayer lobby. Her trash talk stats are public record. Julian couldn't outspar her. He stood mute, face black with rage. Before I walked away, he insisted on one answer. Did I still love him? I glanced once at the river of light pouring from Cloud Line, the faint piano threading through the night air, then turned and left without a word. A bitter laugh escaped me. Julian, no one else knew that besides being brilliant at physics, you also play a mean grand piano. On our 6th wedding anniversary, you said the lab had an emergency and you had to stay late. Instead, I spotted you across the Cloud Line lobby playing for Chloe. You played the whole night, and I stood in the corner the whole night. One phone call, just one happy anniversary, would have given me 10,000 reasons to forgive you. But you never called. Later you and Chloe checked into a hotel. Even though I'd already let Julian go, saying the words aloud left a fist of breath trapped in my chest. Love blinds people, strips you of yourself. Thank God I saw the truth before it was too late. I went to Ivy's place. After my shower, she tipped her chin toward the window. Julian was on the sidewalk below. On her phone, Ivy showed me his message. Can you make her forgive me? I drew the curtains. If he liked standing out there, he could stand. The next morning he was still there, dark smudges under his eyes, face haggard. I pretended not to notice and rode to campus with Ivy. I taught my classes, ran my seminar, hashed out problems with Professor Shaw. Julian followed me in silence, impossible to shake. By afternoon, the campus forum had exploded. The entire school was dissecting my life. The top post claimed I'd blackmailed Julian into marriage using my parents' goodwill, then refused to divorce him so I could keep bleeding his money and status, torturing him mentally until he finally paid me off with $1 million and an estate in the suburbs. According to the anonymous poster, my current job was earned on Professor Shaw's mattress. I needed 0 seconds to guess the author. Chloe had panicked this time, moved too fast, left too many fingerprints. Julian saw the slander and apologized, swearing he'd clear my name, insisting we'd married for love. I'd just texted Professor Shaw when Julian spoke. I frowned. That's it. I was furious. Chloe smears me fine, but my parents? They never guilt-tripped you. They treated you better than a birth son, and this is how you repay them. They got sick worrying about us. When I kept vigil at Mom's bedside, she still called you a good kid she'd watched grow up, begged me to talk things through so we could spend our lives together. And you never visited once. On the day of her funeral, you flew Chloe to the Sahara to gaze at desert stars. You froze my funding to force a divorce. I sold our house to pay for her treatment. That estate in the suburbs, it was mine to begin with. The $1 million and the house were only what you owed me. Now Chloe insults my parents. If you have a shred of conscience, help me make it right. I saw struggle and pain flicker in his eyes, but all he managed was a hoarse whisper. Olivia, I'm sorry. But Chloe's pregnant. I can't abandon her. I slapped him and walked away without looking back. I'd always known what he was. Talking to him had been a waste of breath. I didn't need his help to make Chloe pay. I'd collected plenty of proof of his pre-marriage affairs. Back then I'd still loved him and couldn't bear to destroy him. Now I could, and I relished the thought. After filing the police report, I called a friend to arrange a press conference refuting the rumors about my parents and me. Professor Shaw posted my graduation transcript and every SCI paper I'd published, proof I'd earned my research assistant post on merit. He added a video of himself, energetic and emphatic. Olivia is the finest, most beloved student I've ever had. Give her time, she'll outshine even me. Public opinion flipped overnight, and the police invited Chloe for tea. With Professor Shaw's connections pressing down, Julian had to hustle to bail her out. When the storm passed, I buried myself in research and scholarship, deaf to the world. Until Julian knelt on my doorstep. Olivia, I know I was wrong. You're still single, why not start over? He'd called me Olivia back when we first dated, claiming the name belonged only to him, refusing to let anyone else use it. It sickened me now. I laughed coldly. Do you think you're worthy of saying that name? Worthy of sounding like the boy who first used it? He understood. The he I meant was the 18-year-old Julian, the one who'd lost his memory. The present Julian, all calculation and no sincerity, was a stranger. I wasn't living under a rock. I knew Chloe had left prison paranoid, spying on every female within sniffing distance of Julian. She'd lost her old sparkle, turned moody and violent. Distracted, she'd stared at her phone's GPS during an experiment, tracking Julian, and lost her job. After a fight, she'd self-harmed to keep him, miscarrying the baby. Now Julian wanted me back because I'd been promoted, chair of applied mathematics at Riverdale Academy, a brighter future than Chloe could offer. I shut the door in his face without pity. Later, Julian sank into depression. Chloe blamed him for losing the child, demanded marriage and endless hours in the lab for money. But nothing went right. His stock portfolio crashed, and sloppy, rushed work cost him his job. The golden boy had become a featherless chicken. When Chloe wanted a divorce to marry up, Julian refused. Unemployed, he started beating her to vent his rage. Chloe wasn't soft. She met him with a butcher knife. They fought, landed in jail, fought again, an endless bruising loop. During my sabbatical, I flew to Chile's Atacama Desert. At new moon, the Milky Way and nebulae blaze overhead, heart-stoppingly beautiful. One night, stargazing and clearing email, I found a scheduled message. Dear Olivia, I feel my old memories flooding back, so I'm writing this before the me who loves you vanishes. You've told me pieces of our story, I've asked others. I'm powerless, sick with regret. I don't know how to apologize or make amends. You promised to grant one wish. Here it is. If the memory intact me begs you to reconcile, say no, he's a bastard. Of course I'm a bastard too. He and I are the same person. I know you'll never trust my words again, but I need to say, I love you more than I can bear. Please believe my heart. May Olivia smile every day. May Olivia remain forever Olivia. I dragged the letter into the trash and closed the lid. Shutting the laptop, I pictured Julian at 18. I'd never doubted that boy's heart. The heart had simply changed. His face blurred against the star river above, the sky strewn with shimmering nebulae. I carried the computer inside. Tomorrow I'd chase another desert sunrise. May I forever race the rising sun. Thanks for listening. If you liked the story, please like and share. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more tales. See you next time.